The unbeaten run comes to an end after one, for a better word, a horrendous game from the Tigers. Hello there and welcome back to the Hull City Fan Central YouTube channel, where today we're going through the 3-0 loss that Hull City were handed to them at the MKM Stadium following the game with Blackburn Rovers. So of course, it wasn't a bad lead up to this game. We was feeling good, the hopes were high. Hull City were unbeaten throughout the first stretch of this season, with of course the draw on opening day and then the following win in last Sunday's match against Oxford. Well, that comes crashing down now with our first loss of the season. So we've had all three kinds of results: a draw, a win, and now a loss. It's unfortunate to see it happen. Of course, it will happen. There's a few factors deciding into this one, which I'll go through in a minute. But the underlining factor was it was an under par performance from the Tigers from minute one right through to the 90-plus minute, of course, it went on with injury time. It was subpar from 90% of the players on the field. There was a few good moments. A few players had okay games, and we'll come to that in a minute. But on the most part, it was a subpar performance. The big factor coming into this game was there was no Matt Crooks and there was no Charlie Hughes. Now, we knew about Matt Crooks. He had his leg in a boot and was sort of taking it easy. We knew he wasn't going to be part of this game. The big one being Charlie Hughes was left out of this match day squad, not on the bench, not in the starting lineup. This is due to what we've heard being about concussion last week, during last week's game, a concussion precautionary matter. So we can understand that. Cathal McCarthy came in and he filled in for Charlie Hughes in that spot and was handed his Hull City senior competitive debut alongside. Didn't do too badly, of course. I'll come to that in a minute on when we break down each player's performances. But those were two big factors on why Hull City looked subpar in this game. Another underlining factor was what we reported out yesterday in the prediction video, was that Hull City had a major bout of illnesses going around the camp. There was some illnesses going through, presumably. It was ones where your body's trying to evacuate stuff, and so the tiredness, the fact that your body's combating an illness could have played into the fact we don't know who was affected by this illness bout. We can presume that a lot of the players were, judging by the performance today, I mean, quite a few of them might be claiming that it was due to the illnesses, but I think that was a considerable factor in this game, if I can get my words out. The energy was subpar in this one. There was not that clinical edge that we've seen so far for Hull City in the games and also in the Cup. There was no clinical factor. There was no real sort of stretches of this game where you saw Hull City go, that looks like a team that's trying to either get back into this or go ahead, as it was at a certain point. But yeah, it was a subpar from minute one right through to the 90th minute. There was some good moments in there. Hull City looked like they was trying to get a little bit of something going after the third goal went in. Of course, that was quickly dwindled, and I mean, by that point, it was too late. There was a little bit of stretch in that first half. Before the goal, it was where Hull City, I think, forced their keeper into making 3 saves in about 3 minutes or something like that. So there was a couple of moments which we'll pick out, but on the most part, it was subpar. But it's nothing to worry about. Teams are not going to go undefeated for the entirety of the season. Their losses will happen. And for a Tigers squad that coming into the season, many pundits, many outside fans, and many fans, including Hull City, including myself, didn't have us tipped to be playoff contenders, and we're not going to be playoff contenders. A top 10 finish would be the dream this season, but mid-table is probably what's going to happen. And with a performance like that, you can see it happening from time to time where Hull City will just drop the points, they'll just drop the games, in essence, punt a game. And that's unfortunately happened here, which has handed Blackburn, in turn, their first win of the season. So let's go straight into what's happened in this game. So 3 goals were conceded. The first goal was a bit of a play where one player from Blackburn got slipped behind the defence and was able, it was Hedges, was slipped behind the defence, got a through ball through and just slotted that away past Panda. Maybe you're looking for a little bit of better to mark him on his run through from the City defence, but yeah, it happens. Goals like that will happen. It's an unfortunate one to give up, of course. It's in the 18th minute. And then coming into the second half, 1-0 to Blackburn. Well, we conceded 2 in the first 5 minutes of the second half, which pretty much nailed the game to bed, with not giving Hull City any chance to really show that fight, that grit in the second half, where they did have it a little bit, I'd say, after the third goal, but it wasn't anywhere near what it could have been after Hull City went 3-0 down. So it was the first goal was a little bit of a tricky one by Ohashi, I think it was, for Blackburn, where it was a ball who was shot in, and Ohashi himself got the last touch, and I think he might have been offside, wasn't given, and so that goal standard. It was one where I think it was taken from a set piece that was craftily done by Blackburn, where they sort of looked like they was going to go for the shot, or maybe a cross ball in, played it low driven down towards Hedges, who then was able to steer it goalwards and eventually got the touch off Ohashi. And then the third one was from the man that I said about in this game, Todd Cantwell, the one to watch out for, and he sort of just driven a volley in, which sort of fell to him. That one, there was a clear claim for Ryan Giles to maybe make a bit more of his challenge early on and stop the ball going in for Blackburn, but it didn't quite happen. And Todd Cantwell, I mean, he had quite a game and a half in this one, commanded this game for Blackburn Rovers, and sort of saw out the 3-0 win for them to hand their first win of the season. Of course, this happens with Sean McLaughlin getting a clean sheet, his first clean sheet for Blackburn Rovers. And I mean, the trick seems to be, if you want to beat Hull City this season, you need to have an ex-Hull City player on your team. It happened with Wrexham, with Ryan Longman, and now it's happening with Blackburn Rovers and Sean McLaughlin. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Middlesbrough when we have to face off against Alfie Jones. But that seems to be the ongoing theme this season. As I said, there was some good performance in this game. There's some subpar performances. Let's rack through the team and then we'll go back into a bit more of what we saw in the game. So Ivor Panda in the net. Not the best of performances from Panda, a little bit subpar. Looks a little bit like a standard quality of a keeper in this sort of level, not the Panda quality that we've seen pulling off the brilliant saves and distribution. His distribution was all right in this game, to be fair. He played some smart passes, and his bowling out of the ball and distributing with his hands looked quite all right. Just shot stopping, of course, he didn't save any of the 3 goals. And to be fair, maybe you can escape him on 1 or 2 of them. Maybe the volley would be the easiest one to leave him out of. But the other 2 goals, he maybe could have saved 1 or 2 of them. The first goal, maybe not. The second goal, possibly you could be putting on him. In towards the defensive line, now the fullbacks didn't look anywhere near what we've seen them to be so far this season. Of course, Cody Drammer possibly being the better out of the 2. He looked a bit better going forwards than Ryan Giles, I've got to say, which has been sort of the factor where them two have differentiated this season, where Giles looked better going forwards. Thought Drammer looked better going forwards in this game, and also maybe looks a little bit better going back defensively. He made quite a few mistakes in this one, but still recovered from a fair few of them, so not completely horrid there from Cody Drammer. He sent about partnership of Cathal McCarthy in this one and John Egan. Egan was handed the captain's armband, and it was an okay performance from John Egan. Nothing really to write home about, but same again, it's nothing where you're putting any slander on him. Cathal McCarthy, in his Hull City debut, in his championship debut, it didn't start the best sort of way for him, considering that he gave off so many fouls in that first half. I think it was about 3 or 4 different fouls in that first half. And got to say, maybe it's him trying to show his strength and show that he's not going to be a player to be bullied about with in the championship this season, because he might be called upon yet again. We don't know how long Hughes might be out for. Charlie Hughes might be out for. So Cathal McCarthy may be called upon again for Hull City and showing his strength in this one. After that, after the sort of the little blip at the start of the game, he didn't look too bad, to be fair. Recovered quite nicely, won some fouls as well. Didn't look too bad in his championship debut. Of course, there's a big step up from him playing previously in the second division of the Irish League. And Giles, I mean, this was probably the worst start we've seen from Giles this season. Of course, this new look of Ryan Giles sort of rolling back the years, and maybe this was not quite the Ryan Giles of last season. Still looked a bit better than that, but still, it wasn't anything. Same again, to write home about. He had maybe a claim on the 3rd goal. He could have done a bit better to have a challenge out further out before the ball got in. And then him going forwards, didn't play any spectacular balls into the box. And then, of course, defensively looked okay, but nothing to the standard that we've seen Giles have so far this season. Well, Slater started the game in the midfield, replacing, of course, I said, the injured Matt Crooks. He looks okay, didn't do too much in that midfield. It wasn't really the contributing factor that you looked for someone to replace the likes of a Matt Crooks. Matt Crooks has been such an influential player in that midfield for Hull City this season, and to have Slater come in and not really replicate anything of Crooks in this game really sort of hindered the fact in the midfield. John Lundstrom, well, he didn't have the best of performances. Still is a quality player there. Still had a quality about him and still looked like he was commanding. Especially, he was a brilliant asset there towards that defensive line. He was helping them, helping negotiate what to do. Like, he was helping, I saw McCarthy at points. He was helping out and what to do. It just didn't have a true foot in this game. Possibly one of the players that looked okay in this game. I'll come to maybe another couple in a second, but Lundstrom, not the best performance we've seen from him in a Hull City shirt, and we could maybe give that to his performance last week, but still certainly not one that I'm going to be selling my stocks on John Lundstrom. Geldhart also started this game, and he looks good whenever he was able to get on the ball. Trouble, certainly at the start of the game, where I think he was double marked in this game, and he was unable to get on the ball and was unable to get driving forwards like we've seen Geldhart do, and how we've seen him score goals in 2 minutes of games. So yeah, Geldhart looks good only when he was able to get on the ball, and that was a big deciding factor in them early stages of that game. He wasn't able to get on the ball. He wasn't able to contribute because Blackburn came in. They've done their homework and wasn't able to let Hull City play maybe how they wanted to start this one. And then, of course, being in that 3-hole slump come the 5 minutes into the second half, well, it's a hard one to fight out of for any team. Casey Palmer started this one, and it wasn't a positive start there from Casey Palmer. He didn't look horrid, but he didn't look good. It was just a meh performance from Casey Palmer, coming off the back of a good performance last week. So unfortunate that from Palmer. And Darla, I've got to say, I think he might have been the brightest spark in this game. He played for 67 minutes. Every time he was on the ball, he was driving forwards. He was showing his skill by his dribbling and his footwork, and he was really driving the ball forwards. Maybe the only thing you can maybe put him down on was he wasn't in maybe the right places at the right time, but you can't fully fault him on that. Still a young player, developing each game. He's going to get constantly better, and I think this was another positive performance from Joel and Darla. Ollie McBurney up top didn't get quite so much service as he maybe has seen in the games prior to this one, but still, he's going to be up there. He's going to be a commanding presence. He was causing a nuisance for Sean McLaughlin in that first half, and it wasn't really able to translate over into that second half. And then, of course, later on, he was partnered up with Kyle Joseph in a double strike partnership, which didn't contribute too much. But, of course, I say by that point, with 3-0 down, you can't take anything too much from that. So the substitutes, it was nice to see Mohamed Belloumi come back for Hull City. He was reintroduced in the 84th minute, coming back off his ACL injury, which put him out for the entirety of pretty much the entirety of last season. And then, of course, the first little bit of this season. Nice to see him back. Didn't get too much of a run out, but of course, it's more about a fitness case with him. He was also introduced alongside Brandon Williams, who made his Hull City competitive debut. Of course, we've seen him a little bit as a trialist in pre-season, but now officially a Tiger, and got into this game alongside replacing Geldhart, sorry. Of course, we didn't see too much of him as well. Joseph was introduced in the 55th minute, and he looks okay, an energetic force coming on, and this is what you like to see from Kyle Joseph, him use his pace, his energy, get tiring down that defence and chasing about the ball and really applying the pressure. You saw it at good points, and then it didn't really result in too much. Whether you can put that down to how Blackburn played around him, whether you saw it maybe because no one else was backing up around him, or what have you, but that Kyle Joseph energy didn't translate into anything, and therefore his appearance onto the field was nothing more than that little bit of an energetic blip, which quickly sort of died out. And then the other introduction was Akintola, of course, coming on in the 67th minute, and that one didn't pay too many dividends. Of course, Hull City suffering a 3-0 defeat. Of course, some of these substitutes paid any true dividends into the squad. But it was good to see, I say, Mohamed Belloumi back for Hull City. That's probably going to be the big talking point from Hull City, rather than the fact that we suffered a 3-0 defeat. That's going to be a big talking point, but I'd like it to be the fact that Mohamed Belloumi is back. He's working his fitness back. He's ahead of schedule in the fact that he's back at Hull City, and hopefully this will pay something forwards. We're looking ahead. Abu Kamara, he's looking like he's going out on loan to Getafe for the entirety of this season. So an introduction or reintroduction of Mohamed Belloumi would be quite nicely added there. And of course, it provides some competitive edge to your Geldharts, your Ndalas, and possibly a Miller when he returns, and some of the younger lads like your Farrell Browns. It's going to provide some competitive edge for them, something to compare themselves to, and something for them to up their game, which may be needed. It's early on in the season, but still, you have to take every game as it comes. And Sergei Yakirovich will be looking at this one and be going, right, I want to change so many things. I want to change everything, getting ready for that away game at Bristol next weekend. And hopefully, by that point, Hull City will have possibly another addition into that midfield that we talked about. A few options are flying about. Possibly have Belloumi back a little bit more in stretch, in fitness wise. Of course, he's missing a full year of football, so it's going to take a little bit for him to get back to fully fit, ready to start a game or so. But by that point next week, he'll be reflecting on this one. Of course, you maybe can say that the illness bout is behind Hull City, and that could be the factor why they didn't look too strong in this one. But next week is going to be a completely different case. We've seen this so far with Sergei Yakirovich. He doesn't have a true plan in the sense that he doesn't have a style of football like we've seen with Volta, like we've seen with Sayers, like we've seen with previous managers trying to force their style of play onto the players. He's more of an open book. He's going to let things flow. He's going to let things adapt and change. The adaptability, that was the key thing he said when he took the job at Hull City. And this is going to be the point where we see it try and pay its fruition. Hull City suffer their first loss of the season, and it's going to be a case of how do they bounce back from this. As I say, I keep up to date with everything here on the Hull City Fan Central YouTube channel, so make sure you like and subscribe, as I'll see you in the next video, where hopefully we have some more positive news rather than this little bit of negative news to talk about in the Hull City camps. I'll see you in the next video. Up the Tigers!